I talked to him about that. We had a discussion on Friday.
Did you give him a lashing? Because I don't think.
I told him what's what.
Yeah.
Is he getting married like right
Yes.
now? His mate
They're doing wedding planning.
Oh, no. They can plan the wedding here.
I think we're live.
Looks
like we're up.
Not to do it.
Hey, we are streaming this on Google Hangouts, so if you don't want this saved for posterity, so we'll come back and invite you in the posterior. Gotta find it right now.
So don't talk about the time I hacked something.
Yeah, don't talk about talking about some, because it's live on the internet from, we're dead on the internet. Can you have a look at it? Lee's here to talk to us today. It's a continuation of his last talk on authentication mechanisms, and he's going to talk specifically today about OAuth. So hopefully you brought all your really hard pressing OAuth questions where it's kick your butt during installation or music, and we'll stump the speaker. So Lee, take it away.
Thank you. That's a good introduction. We're going to talk a little bit at a high level and a little bit at the end, maybe some examples on low level. I don't have anything really great. Jarfall, I didn't have any debug modes. You can't really see unless it crashes, anything really interesting. And it was a proof of concept piece I pulled together. You'll see that. So, guys, last time said you wanted to see a little bit more. We'll cheat, probably use some stuff off the web that's easier to deal with. I'm getting ahead of myself. I have not given this presentation ever before. I made it this week. I had a draft of a novel I was working on. I finished that at the beginning of the week, then worked on this after work and at lunch a couple of days. So I may screw something up and say something that's not correct, not true. If you hear anything on this, it is that a resource. Do that one.
Okay, so let me see if I get this straight. You're going to talk about OAuth, which is really kind of nasty topic, and you managed to do all this while writing a novel.
I got the draft done first.
Okay, that's just wrong.
So, we talked about federation last week. Does anyone have any questions about federation? Maybe not this guy from federation. Anyone? No one wants to. Who was here last time? Okay, about half of us. So,
Do the whole last presentation to get us started. Yes.
It's online, you need to watch it.
All right, so what is federation? Anyone?
Oh, yeah. Single sign-on for an environment that has mixed applications and platforms.
Okay, that's good.
Possibly one of the biggest things is where you have mixed domains, where you don't necessarily want to share the actual credentials between domains, but you want to be able to do a sign-on in one domain that's valid in another domain.
Right. So it's like authentication. Yeah, tokens. Tokens that you pass through.
All right.
Tokens.
Anything else you guys want to throw out there for that? They're pretty good for like a special needs guy over there. Okay, so another thing we might say along with that, we've got mixed domains, possibly SSO within orgs, usually using tokens. Another thing we might do is centralizing our authentication services identity provider, where we don't have to have a different mechanism on each application or service. You can centralize and make that homogeneous across all the different applications and say to your developers, hey, use this library, plug this in, and you know the app's always going to treat that application authentication exchange the same way. You're not going to have each group of developers decide their own way to deal with it. That's one thing you guys didn't say there. And we talked a little bit last time about SAML 2.0. That was the focus of the last presentation. Who knows anything about that? What's SAML?
Security assertion markup language.
Correct. 2.0 rather than 1.1. The other one's going to need to go into the difference of that again. What else do we know about SAML? Anything?
Easy to read.
Yeah, that's true.
All right. What kind of format is it in?
XML.
XML, good. Whether we like XML or not, that's a separate topic again. So that's good stuff. Where do we usually see SAML? And same thing with Picard in the enterprise.
Tags.
Federation.
In the enterprise. not as much out there. Now we're seeing a lot more of the cloud security providers and cloud services use SAML because of the big internet deals. Out of one of these federation protocols, what do we want to see in terms of a feature of them?
You were talking about all the cool fields that you can embed in the XML. It explains what protocol was used, what kind of encryption was used, stuff about the person. So if you actually know what person it was as opposed to just some token stuff you can embed in there, and you can even use custom fields.
Cool. Okay. Let's go to a very high level. What do we want out of a protocol abstractly? We want it to be confidential. We want it to be
Validate the integrity of the contents that are provided.
integrity, and that's good. What else might we want to have there?
Oh, availability.
Yeah. Come on, that was too easy. But
We'll go with that.
anything else like that you might want?
API for it, perhaps.
It's maybe standardized, consistent.
Non-clear text passwords.
Okay. Maybe we want non-repudiation. If somebody sent the thing, to make sure that we know that it actually came from the sender and what time. You said we have something reliable with the timestamps in the protocol and not just be loosey-goosey with when did it expire? Oh, is it 30 seconds after I got it? Is it next week? You get to just, not let it expire until you want to, until you revoke it. Probably just a bad idea, maybe.
You want to look at replay attacks.
Yeah, void replay attacks. Interesting, but maybe we'll talk about that later.
Nonsense might be helpful.
Maybe we'll talk about that. So, aside from the enterprise favorite SAML 2.0, there are others. Today, of course, we're talking about OAuth. Yay, OAuth. Look which one. You've got 1.0.
One thing with standards, there's so many to choose from.
That's the
OAuth
text.
next generation.
I'm sure there'll be an NG in 2.0. This is one of the frustrating things, trying to sort out all the different links on the net, with the libraries and stuff you're trying to write with. Okay, which calling here, which method I'm calling is the right one for this freaking version? And it's not obvious sometimes, unless you really look carefully. Oh wait, some people support more than one. Am I calling the right endpoint for this? But I digress. Little ancestry because you wanted it. This is really boring in case I need to talk to somebody else. Back in 2007, the core wanted to grasp.
This presentation to somebody else. It was so cheated.
Just in case, probably won't ever happen. It is an RFC there, published in 2010. So we've got a supposed standard. In 2009, though, they changed the spec a little bit to deal with a security flaw, and we got a revision to help fix that. Not that it was 2009. We call now 1.0 and 1.0a have some strong requirements in the RFC, including some musts for things like signatures, timestamps, anons, mention that, etc. And I think that's a good thing to have those musts in there if we're going to use it. That means we know what's going to be there. It must be there. The 2.0 framework was in 2012, and that has significant adoption today. Like for the big guys, you may recognize some of these folks. All support OAuth 2.0. Wow, there's some big players there. One at the bottom, everybody knows that one. Fortunately, for reasons we'll see, 1.0a is still supported out there in the wild, and it might be interesting to note what's different between, other than a couple of these. Something about those guys versus these guys. At least a couple of them. LinkedIn, you might see more on the business people side. Salesforce, maybe more with the business and enterprise. Twitter is the outlier that supports both. Google right now supports 1.0, but see, they have a little warning when I go through the demo that says this is going to stop in April of this year. We're not going to support it anymore. So there's still, these guys will have dual support or just one. Netflix, I think, just maybe want people stealing movies.
Yeah, they give away session cookies in clear text, so I don't know how much it matters.
A lot of this says, well, there's probably 3 other ways to hack it and get control of the session and steal the credentials. So does it really matter?
You just Google somebody's password, you think.
Probably so. So one thing we notice here for authentication, we talked about in the OAuth spec, which I blew past. We guys pretty much knew what it was. It's supposed to be an authorization protocol. Authorized users. I can go and read that off here, so I won't say it. Oh, look, it says it's an open standard for authorization. Provides client applications secure delegated access to server resources on behalf of the resource owner. Provides owners authorized third-party access to the server resources without sharing credentials. Designed to work with HTTP. It allows access tokens, blah, blah, for authorization to an authorization server to a client, app, or end user. I didn't see authentication anywhere in that.
That's because it's not done in the protocol. It's done wherever you're locally at, is where they authenticate you. And then once you're authenticated, they vouch that you are the person. And if you're this person, that person is authorized to use this. That's all you do. That way you're not sharing credentials across domains.
And in the same way that, in the same case with SAML, you have some layer at the front end, like one's off or two-factor or something. Sure enough, yeah, that table's crazy.
Yeah.
We still see people, surprisingly, end up using this for authentication somehow. And we could do that. I don't think that would be a good idea for a protocol made for authentication. What's going on there? Well, one thing you don't want to do with 2.0 is do anything like that at all. It doesn't support, as part of the protocol, signatures, encryption, channel binding, or any kind of client verification. Yet it has very significant adoption. 1.0a has a lot of that stuff specified in the protocol. Maybe all of it if I read more carefully. But 2.0 doesn't say anything about that. They call it now just a framework. You can certainly implement like any of these things you might want, but it's not a requirement. And that's kind of weird. Where am I on 6? That's that. Sorry, guys. There's something on this one I wanted to read. Well, it's a stretch that we call anything with this. All right. It's more of a framework than a defined protocol. Implementations are less likely to be naturally interoperable at all with any other implementation. Further deployment profiling and spec is really required for you to work with interoperability with somebody else. You're not using a library and API they provided. You're going to be guessing. Some of the providers would use OpenID, one of the big ones I mentioned, in front of OAuth for unification layer. And so that's good. Anything I say about OAuth within this presentation that's negative for some of those guys, I'm not speaking badly necessarily about a Google or Twitter or anybody with their authentication layer. They may have solved some of the problems when they're using 2.0 another way, that's their authentication layer, or you could do something with it. I'm not talking about that. It's just that we've had numerous security flaws exposed. The protocol has been described as inherently insecure by security experts, and a primary contributor to the spec stated that implementation mistakes are almost inevitable.
Sounds solid.
From somebody who wrote the spec saying that. All right, so that's that. Here's an example where you'd say the guy said pseudo authentication using OAuth. Sounds like a lot of you guys have a pretty good idea about it, where the app says, hey, I want to get some information about the resources. Okay, get me, this is, he's calling here a valet key, get to your API, assuming Google or somebody there, the identity provider authenticates you and hands back the token, you hand it to the app. And they're supposed to be limited in scope, which you see. So usually the client and the authorization provider just agree to use that same API and then try to make their two merge with a library from someone to plug into your code. And they often share no more than a client ID and client secret. The things you have there. That's it. Client ID and a client secret. Huh? Gets worse. So here's an example for API access with Google. We've got their, ignore the red thing. I didn't intend for this to be I just picked one of the things that showed it. When you get your web app or application there, you can generate this. They give you those two. It's very easy to get one of the big providers to generate one for you to get that. As you see at the bottom, create another client ID for your app. And you're going to store those, keep them, and use them for everybody that gets the app. All right, so this is, again, a kind of crazy slide. We should start at the bottom. That's going to request the API resource, whatever it is. It's going to go for a get there. The API request comes back, and it's going to say, you aren't authenticated. Go up to the top, use your consumer app key, and that secret to request a token. So you go up for that authorization at the top. Part of that format will see you say basic, and the token, which returns a bearer token if you've got the right one you're giving for an authorization grant token. Comes back, the app parses it, and then goes through that loop at the bottom again and says, hey, I'd like the resource now. Hey, I've got a bearer token. Give me the resource. And then it comes back with a 2.0 and gives you the stuff. That's not the best slide either, but it's one of the ones I found that I don't like the way they laid that slide out. So what they call an application-only flow there, say with Twitter, an app encodes its consumer key and secret into a special set of credentials. Anyone looked at that API or anything and done anything with it? All that is it concatenates them. So we go from, instead of having a universal your application like username and password,
It concatenates a bunch of stuff, right?
and 1.0a it does. For this piece right here, it concatenates just them with a couple of extra characters too. I'm serious.
That is
Not even
special, though.
concatenates them and then hashes it, unless the other side that has the same thing, the shared secret, just look at the hash. It just sends them on, dude. Now somebody else may implement it differently, like that way that I just said might be a little better, right?
Right.
So somebody cracks open your little mobile app and looks in there and sees what they are. Even if you hash it, maybe on top of my head I could come up with a better protocol. The server will send you a random string. You use those two pieces, generate a hash with a random string, pass it back to the server. It compares the hash. Okay, off the top of my head, I probably came up with some not perfect. Probably got a mistake, but better than that. So the app makes a request, posts to that token point to exchange. When we say these, that's just that concatenated string with them, or that bearer token. And then it'll pull the bearer token back, hit the resource, and the app says, yeah, I know what this is. My identity provider made this. And whatever it uses for a method to check that, could be probably as strong as you want it. They could do something like I just said. You don't know. So we should all jump on the bandwagon and convert all our apps to OAuth 2.0 for authorization. Or maybe not. I love that graphic. Look at that. What kind of suspension do they have in those? And is it just like bare metal in their springs? How's that even?
Yeah, I've ridden in those in Prague when they're not that great.
So the guy who had that quote earlier, he was hammered with the original spec. He had some interesting things to say about that. One of the things he said in comparing OAuth 2.0 with 1.0 and 1.0a is become more complex, less interoperable, less useful, more incomplete, and more importantly, less secure. And Aaron Hammer then, in 2012, resigned his role of the lead author for the 2.0 project, withdrew from the IETF working group, removed his name from the spec. I don't know about you, but if the person that wrote the spec to begin with and worked with the group did that, it's not just me, I don't think, telling you this isn't a good protocol to use, right? It's probably not. That guy knows way more than I do about it. I'm playing with little libraries from Spring Security and .NET, C#. I'm messing with this stuff, getting it to work. And the guy that wrote the darn protocol originally says, don't use it. And I've got exactly this little piece I'll show you, assuming you get to that point that's of any interest. And just like that, I mean, it took me no time to use the library and make a little jar file. It's so easy to set up, I can see why the adoption is there. Compared to having to use the signatures and pieces with the nonce and the timestamp with 1.0a, which I haven't done a good job of talking about, it is easier. So I have to deal with, okay, I've got to have a library to do signing for this. I've got to keep track of these other variables and stick them in here. But 2.0, you don't have to do any more than what I showed you. And it is that easy. You can probably do it by hand without even using the library once you looked at the exchange. There's just not that much to it. Anybody who doesn't be coding through it. Okay. So, the architectural changes for 2.0, unbound tokens from the client, removed all signatures and cryptography at the protocol level, added expiring tokens because they couldn't be revoked easily, and complicated the processing of authorization. Now, I disagree with that last statement. They did make authorization a lot easier. It's so simple that, again, this is horribly broken. That it's just insane. Numerous items were left unspecified or unlimited in the spec because it's been the nature, as people said, the working group servers. There you go. No issue was too small to get stuck on and leave open for each other to decide. And I think, not knowing, you could probably do some good research out there with a quick Google search, that some of the bigger players in there, we won't name names, I don't know who they are, I expect wanted to do their own thing, and then pressured that working group and said, we want to leave this open so we can do it our own way, that'll be better. And enough of them kept voting to say that because they wanted their version of the spec to be the one that got adoption without it being firmly written ours. I can't imagine which players out there on the internet would want to have their own private version of the protocol be the one that everybody used and took off with. There might, maybe you could think of a few of them. More than one. Again, I'm not pointing any imaginary fingers. Everybody on that list of graphics we saw just, you know, we start with something good and then they keep ripping the pieces out. Now, all the complaints out there, you can go and put them back in. They're not specified at the protocol level, right? I could go to that token exchange and client seats and stuff and get up my own security into it, and it would be fine, probably. But you have to assume that the identity provider has done that with the API. So, we hear a lot about tokens. I get sick of this with sometimes when I'm working with the developers who don't know SAML stuff with this, and with some developers who just like to call everything a token, even when it's not a token. So that's usually me in a meeting after, especially with some folks who really just want to use the word token. Maybe they mean cookie, maybe they mean, you know, something else, session ID, header variable, and they keep calling things like that, you know, a token. No, it's the header variable, just not token.
Maybe they really want to, you know, maybe they really want to go.
Say token one more time. Well, at least it works. Sort of. A bit more detail, which again, some of it could probably be a lot better. And then maybe one or two real examples. Here was, let me see if you can see. Another flow, maybe this one's a little bit better. I put this up here because I think it explains better. The client, there, it's not the user. It's an app request authorization from a resource server. They get sent to a login page, hopefully, over at the authorization server. That piece there is where, pointed out very well, authentication would happen here. You're already authenticated and had a session, or some authentication layer would take over. And that could be forms-based auth, you can see from those things on the internet. It could be anything that hopefully is better than the rest of this. You're going to send that back from the client to the resource server. You're going to say, okay, I'll give you an authorization grant. The client passes that over.
Might help.
If everything worked right, you get that access to it. The client then passes that on.
By the way, if you ever need it,
What I wanted, your API, maybe I just want to list
top drawer.
Okay.
whatever. Put a pointer in there, something like that. It comes back. Now this piece of key I have not seen. The resource server validates the access station and passes that back to the client. Has anyone seen, after if anyone's done any OAuth work, after a client posts that token, a callback that goes back to the identity provider to validate it? I've never seen that.
Switch configs set.
I don't see anybody else saying anything. So this is really interesting. That would actually be a part of the implementation of the protocol that you did. Take that back here, and have the server say, oh, okay, let me do the SAML. Give me some more,
Redone.
give me some active.
For all intents and purposes, it's also configured back to one issue.
That's not a required protocol.
Not only is not required, when you say validates the access token, it would do that internally probably here and look at that long token screen and go, hey, did this really come from the authorization server that I'm supposedly paired with by the guys who developed it? Surely there's some mechanism. You can't just send anything, right, over to it, just random string. But it's let her know, hey, is it tied with this section in some way? If I just send a random string, no, okay, this means something to me. I'll unwrap it and look at it. But I have not seen anyone implement it where you get a callback a second time to pull out attribute or validate it. You can validate internally with whatever mechanism in the code, to check someone this 9. They're all 9.
Looks good to me.
Yeah. There's just the same thing I talked about. The client here, when we say client there, in this case we usually mean the app and not the user, right? Again, some of the terminology of that always kills me where it's not clear. It gets used so much for mobile apps. 90% of the time they should just say app instead of client. Request a resource, they get redirected. Client requests an authorization token, then the auth server authenticates if needed. The client then submits an authorization token, requests the access tokens, and gets an access token, 2 tokens, and now armed with that, request the resource again, which is just a replay of this first request. With that,
So
and then you get what you asked for.
3-part upgrade to the latest firmware.
For Google's API, you can see some stuff they put in there. This is for the next slide.
C7000 enclosure upgrade to the latest firmware, blades, virtual point locking, other
You
enclosure.
can use it in testing with Google client ID and app ID.
Current C7000 enclosure will be retabled. Let's say
It won't
new
do
DLT
this, we don't
system
need to
active
stuff
6
out.
installed.
That's pretty cool.
Tells the
You know what's their OAuth 2
Yes.
with the OAuth URL there?
Updated and
For authorizing the
best
token.
practices.
What resource did you want? There's
Have we finished that? Do we, we patched it?
It's all sorts of things with it. Pile of services and apps and things they offer.
They
Lots
should
of
now starting down my list.
offline or online to
Okay.
always
Have to start on all the researches.
Okay.
pop up something for the user and make them. When it's offline, you say every time,
The vMotion,
hey, you want to do
bring in that and everybody.
Yeah, that's part of the research.
another one you've seen
And
when
then
you
have to go
install
out
the app.
and check
You allow
drivers.
Xbox to access or contacts your bank account. Press accept.
We replaced the fiber
And
cable.
that's that approval prompt for us along with the offline and online. There's 2.
The multi-path integration.
And then that redirect to go back to
Yeah,
your URL or your app.
oh, yes. Okay.
Now when I get done.
CP configured with IP address so it can reach via SSH. Have we done that, Andy?
Yes.
Okay. Do we fix that date?
Yes.
Okay.
We didn't get success there.
Have we remove it? Unneeded items and native SC config?
Yes.
Just, yes, okay. Just C7000 network config to best practices.
You have 4 channels.
Anyone? Anyone?
With fail.
I love Linux.
Both kinds, country and.
Right.
So we have another one there.
Kevin, I think provision lazy zero exists. Right? I think provision lazy zeros. It's not going to write the zeros until it can fill up that. So it's right.
Yes.
So it's not. So it's not guard.
It's not guard. It doesn't
Guards.
It doesn't eat.
Yeah. But you gotta get the app.
This is why we can't have nice things. Right here. There we go.
We don't want that.
All right, so maybe that wasn't.
Let's work.
Seriously.
Save.
We look at this one. No. What the heck? That's really strange.
Yeah, now hit F11 there. That'll get you out full screen.
Okay.
Okay.
There we go. We got out of the presentation.
Would you get that IBM edition of Firefox, man?
Where did the heavy edition of Firefox?
That IBM one?
Yeah, it's an IBM Open Linux client.
Oh, okay.
There's a reason I'm flailing around. For the last 10 years, I've actually used a Windows machine. And I started with them in November. They've given me this one on Linux. And it was always command line Linux stuff for me a decade ago.
Yeah.
And I just don't run it. I don't have any idea.
I struggle with it. I feel they just like, how do I get back on that?
Something as simple as that. Switching tabs onto the page. Right. Plug into this projector. And like this. What the hell is he doing there?
Yeah, there's weird things that just don't seem to like flow.
I had this guy crash. Okay, back here. Now,
Like, here's the crash.
I don't know, probably. There's all kind of stuff that's always running in the background.
Yeah.
Just pop up. I don't know.
I've noticed that it'll just start reporting on, like I got the new Ubuntu, and it'll just start reporting on stuff. It'll be like, you broke the shit out of this. Congratulations, I'm telling the boss. Hold on, come back. Come back. Don't go away with that yet.
Small secrets.
Sorry for that complete flailing around for a minute. What I wanted to show you was Google's developers OAuth playground. I thought this one working on stuff is really cool because you want to see how these pieces actually work in reality while you're coding. This thing will let you do it. It's really, really neat. It's a whole list of possible API calls.
They have a button over here too.
I don't know if you can see it. Let's see if I can find one that'll actually work.
If you ever agree to one of Google's OAuths, then it just never goes away. It's always online.
So, I set up the API call was for the, can you guys see that? Calendar.
Yeah.
Hey, look at that. There's a prompt. It wants to view my calendar, so I have to say yes. There was the authentication step. It came back and gave me that authorization code. I'm going to push that back to the server and say yes, some token. Like you're saying token before. Here we've got a refresh token and an access token. It's zipped bypass. You saw it here. 2.0 here. We weren't getting just one token, a bearer token. We got two. That's pretty interesting. Okay. Get calendar. Let's ask me what kind of operations for the request for the API I want right there. You know, what part of this do you want to do? And then there you go. So you can see them over here. I'm looking in the right place. So for 2.0 here for the spec most people use, this access token is what you want to actually get in there and get to the resources. But you also get, there's an expiration for this access token, this thing called a refresh token. Now, you get two. The price of one. I was back. I'm not sure why we got a 404 if not found for that, but that's a really cool little toy.
Because you're doing a demo, that's why you
So I can't actually say success there.
You have angered the demo gods.
I don't know. I probably just picked the wrong call.
5 points to Griffin.
That thing's a great resource. Right. Hold on from here. Seriously. There we go. That's do better. We'll leave it like this. So I won't be flailing around next time. So, what was that about the refresh token? I've been ranting about it for 30 seconds. I got on that. But anybody know what that is?
For after your bearer token expires?
Yep.
Is it so they don't have to prompt you again now?
Yes.
Circumvent a prompt over and over.
You can use it for that and to get a new access token over and over, which you've authorized this, you don't want to have to, but it never expires unless it's revoked. Once you have that, you just keep using it and not be. This is how your app every single time on the phone doesn't ask you, hey, because the access token will expire, right?
Why even have a refresh?
Yeah, why even bother with security in the first place if you're just going to make it pointless?
Really, see, this is the point of the whole presentation. I'm sure, did anyone think of an attack vector one might use with a non-expiring token I can use to just throw and request a resource?
I think when Gmail first came out, they got super, I don't know, laughed at, I guess. But maybe my mom's watching, I don't know. Because they had perma cookies. So if you ever took someone's cookie, you couldn't expire the cookies.
Right.
They were just there forever. Perma tokens, I guess. To use the nomenclature.
There we go. Right at the bottom, can we see it? It's not just me saying that. As long as the user has not revoked the access granted, the response includes a new access token. Each response and request is shown below. So once you've got that refresh token, it's there until the user manually goes in. You've probably seen this on your phone or somewhere else. You go in and revoke access to the apps. That's what that means. But this is insane to me that you would do that.
why would you do that? Every time. It definitely makes it easier on them, right? I mean, that's the whole goal of this, is making it easier on them.
And I bet if you had, you know, my wife or my mom would certainly ask, if they asked her again, hey, do you still want to allow access to this? Why do I have to keep hitting accept?
I'm not going to use this one anymore. I'm going to get the one that doesn't bother me.
They're going to stay logged in, and they're going to stay with that authorization in place and keep using it. I mean, I guess from the perspective of somebody like a Facebook or a Twitter, yes, we wanted this functionality because I don't want someone to have to agree every so often, or the other condition that maybe, you know, unless you went through and manually, either we revoked the token or they did. What? All right, and 1.0 is better. I don't know if I have as much stuff with that. I don't want us to read a Twitter reference. When you guys get the presentation, I think it's worth it to look at that link for how you use signatures and sign requests and things. Writing your own, there's so many libraries out there for it. I talked a little about it before. If you do want to write in 1.0 and say, I'm not sure how to make a digital signature on top of these tokens, or I don't really know what to do to deal with these timeouts or callbacks, there are so many different choices out there for things to do that. If you don't like one of them from Spring Social or from the Spring framework, you want to use something else, I use one this guy written that's old called Scribe, and I mean, it took an hour probably from nothing in the IDE and the clips and just clicking through. There was nothing to it because someone's done all the work. And you wouldn't want to really do that. All right, he said, and if you like to code in C, C#, Java, Ruby, anything you want, people generally, because this is so, there's such demand for mobile apps and such demand for this ease of use, someone has ported these libraries to every language you can imagine. I'm sure that Python, yeah, Cobalt. Cobalt, maybe not. That might actually be a fun project. So we're not there yet. Let's go here. Let's see. Right directory. So you saw the little jar file that I filed with this thing. This is the same thing that we saw before, assuming it'll run. It's not off the edge. There we go. So it went out to that Google Auth workflow. This is essentially the same thing that we saw on Google's developer piece. Not a request token. There's what it looks like. This is a 1.0 version, so you actually see here, that's not a, there's a signature on that appended to the end of it. And I've got to go, this is, the app's not going to do stuff for me. I've got to go out to Google and get authorization. I don't know why it's not doing it. Anyone? There we go. Okay. Not registered. Secure connection. We recommend you don't allow access unless you trust the website. Yeah, it wasn't the website. Okay. There's the important notice. OAuth 1 for Google is going away on April 20th. So even though I wrote it with the 1.0a specs, like a little signature and a little bit of extra security in the timeout. Nope. Okay. What I did there was gave the grant, the app, the Google account, and to complete the process, now I'm going to take this code that would have returned in the background to the app, but I want you guys to be able to see it. And where am I? Paste it here. All right. Yeah. And I don't know what that was. What does it say?
Can't extract token.
What run again? It's like you said, it works perfectly at home.
Oh, just remember to turn off that API when you're done. Otherwise, everybody who watches this video will leave your site.
Yeah. Oh, come on. Is this really? There we go.
Oh, there's a period on the end.
Yeah, I might have gotten a period last time. Or it could just be because it's bad. I didn't. Yep.
Oh, it could have been a time thing. Hey, you got 200 there.
Yep, got it. It was the dash I left off. So, and just that easy,
there's a scribe library for 1.0. I got a whole bunch of feed stuff off my new calendar. So there you go. It wasn't actually too bad. Alright. And that's as far as I got so far. Any questions that I probably can't answer? None? Great.
So, like, all of this stuff is supposed to make things easier on the user. So, for like, what, like, more than 10 years, we've had a thing where you can give, you know, a user access with good encryption, like strong security. Like, we've had client-side SSL certs with good browser support. Like, is all this really better than client-side SSL certificates?
I think you can see that it's not. Like I said, even something if you just stuck with 1.0, which I didn't get to do as much demonstration of the code yet. Obviously, you're having a little issue with my presenting ability on this version of Linux, and I apologize for that. But you can see in there, even the 1.0 is far better than the 2.0 with the way it was implemented. Go read the spec off Wikipedia or anywhere else, but look at the Google stuff. While they still have it supported, it's better. The 2.0 thing, I think, to make it so easy for developers who haven't had as much security training, and to make it easier on the users without. I don't understand why it wants me to refresh a certificate. I don't understand why I have to hit accept once a week. I don't understand. I think that would be the reason why. I can't say. Maybe everyone was trudging ahead, like to jump on the bandwagon, and then we got here. But if you and I could sit here on this whiteboard, I don't use that much, and puzzle out a better authentication protocol, you know, like that, then I think there's a huge problem in this with the industry. The only thing I can tell you guys, if you are implementing this and using 2.0, do some stuff inside the protocol to make it better. It's not hard to do a little bit and make it better.
It seems like they're sacrificing integrity for accessibility, you know? And
so much so.
Why would they want to do that, though? Google's already under fire. So, I mean, that's one of the users. That's one of the main implementers. But, I mean, a lot of those people are already under fire for their security. Why would they go with this?
Also under fire for like being a monopoly. So
yeah, never mind.
You know, like seriously.
No, yeah.
Germany's going after them big time right now.
My suspicion again is if you look at the app stores for the mobile apps, you see a huge volume of them. The amount of money that an Apple and that a Google makes for things moving through the app store. That there's so much money in it as money flows through there with this to make it this easy for the users. It's probably not a concern to me. Looks and goes.
The litigation would be negligible on the other hand.
Compared to the cost of litigation and any press is good press. I don't care. People will forget in a year. What was it that was weird with that little Fidelity banking app? I don't know. And over here you've got every day thousands and thousands of people buying apps and they're getting a cut of it. And I want developers in China and India and Pakistan and South America and Eastern Europe to be able to write the apps at $10 an hour or $5 an hour rather than 50 or 90 or whatever. Because I want more apps because I can't make it hard to implement my apps because people can't get them done and put them in the store and then people can't buy them. I can't get my cut.
I see.
That's my opinion, is they just want it to be so easy to implement and so easy for the user that it just doesn't matter. I said, any of you guys here do any hacking, I can see an amazing attack vector like that, and you've got it. And there's no.
So obviously you're not recommending using OAuth. Is your recommendation SAML or something else?
I would just say for the enterprise, which again is the audience I usually do for this, I would tell them I understand you guys have to write mobile apps because one of our big clients right now is a car company. And they got a new line of mobile apps, a new branded website for a couple of their product lines, and they got to have this mobile app working, and this is the way to do it, because everybody else does it this way. I would have told them, look, we've already got this huge SAML infrastructure. It's working with your other sites, with your enterprise users, and out on the current website that's out there that's being uses for Federation backend, it uses SAML 2.0. A bunch of stuff that we've already put in place. For the end user, it couldn't really be any different.
them to use SAML in the backend, they wouldn't know this. It's not like the users say anything how to use an OAuth 2.0 or 1.0. So yeah, for my customers, I'd say, I understand that your developers, again, have a library that already using this because they had a little framework in their IDE and they were clicking around code and stuff, and it just was done like that. But I need you to take a little bit more time and consider whether you want Mr. Big Car Company to be the one that all your user accounts get hacked and somebody realized that the server side of this maybe had a weakness. It was accepting refresh tokens. And you had people registering on the site with that app. There are a lot of different things that, that bother me about the program. The big thing is just that everyone's on the bandwagon with it, and 15 to 30 minutes, any of you could see this wouldn't be a good idea to implement. Thanks a lot. And this is not supported nor presented. It's not the opinion of either IBM or CTG. That content is my opinion only. Anybody watching this at work? It's just me. It's just an opinion.
I can tell you, no one at work right now is watching this unless you're doing it on YouTube, and then I wouldn't know.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.